The Gulf Coast Growth Show is sponsored by Chevron Pasadena Refinery and is an extension of the Economic Alliance Houston Port Region, where our mission is to market and grow a vibrant regional economy. Hey everybody, and welcome to Season 9 of the Gulf Coast Growth Show, and in our special Valentine's Day edition, except for Zeke forgot to remind me, and so I'm without my paint today. But hey, we're here today. I'm with my co-host Zeke Smith.
What's up, Jason?
Glad, well, I felt like I haven't seen you in forever. It's been a couple of months, and so excited to have you. And then with the illustrious Chad Burke. Illustrious.
Cupid himself.
Absolutely. And we're doing a prediction episode today. We're gonna test Chad as to how he did against last year on his predictions. No, but in all seriousness, we like to kick off every season really with just kind of a recap of last year, how the organization did, how our region looked, and then kind of your forecast for the upcoming year. And then we'll start taking side bets. So it'll be a good time. So
yeah, see how good your sources are, Chad.
Yeah, this is a fun one. And I think from our previous discussion, it sounds like I at least hit one of the predictions.
Yeah, I think
last year, which was the Cal project, which is currently under construction as we speak.
That's right.
Now. So
that's right.
So little crystal ball action.
Batting 1,000, buddy. There you go.
Well, I'll take that. I really enjoy this podcast at the beginning of each year with a chance to sit down with you guys and look back for a year and then kind of peek into this next year and see what our priorities are, what it kind of looks like going forward. Zeke, like you mentioned, I always like to start with our mission because that really defines what and why we're doing things. And that's our mission is real simple. I tell people they made it simple because they knew I would mess it up if it was complicated, right? So it's to market and grow this regional economy. And for us, that's interpreted as adding capital investment into the ground in this footprint that creates the jobs that drive the economy, right? So we work with companies to either expand here or to locate here. And so everything that we do, if you look at anything that we're doing, it's going to be driven in some form or fashion to meet that goal of making us competitive in getting those capital investment dollars, competing with other sites and locations, whether it's directly in incentives for economic development work on projects, whether it's infrastructure that supports our ability to make and move product through this region, whether it's workforce development that helps us build, maintain, and operate the facilities that make those products, or whether it's public policy that supports our company's ability to prosper in this footprint. And then again, quality of life for our local cities, right? Because we want that population to be able to live reasonably close to where we work, and at the same time feel that, hey, I can raise my family and educate my kids in this footprint in a satisfactory way. So those are the things that really kind of drive what we do, but it's all towards supporting the mission of growing the economy, capturing that capital investment.
So quickly, assuming that the fans of the show are going to grow exponentially season to season here, if there's any new listeners, you said footprint and area and region a couple of times. Yeah. What is that for those? The Economic Alliance serves what region, what footprint?
Great question. So it basically is the Houston Ship Channel, the upper reach, the 25-mile upper reach of the Houston Ship Channel. The Ship Channel in total from Turning Basin to Far Buoy outside of Galveston is 52 miles.
Wow.
But on the upper reach, the upper half of it is what we generally refer to as the Houston Ship Channel. And that includes 12 cities that surround that Houston Ship Channel, contiguous cities that surround the Houston Ship Channel. Really goes all the way from as far south as Pearland and northeast out all the way to Mont Belvieu past Baytown, right?
Yep.
And so that is the footprint. Also in our family of kind of public entities is Harris County, and then the Port of Houston itself, which is kind of a public-private entity, but right. But so it's 12 cities plus the county plus the Port of Houston. And then in addition to that, it's about 250 companies that work inside this footprint.
It's growing.
And growing, always.
Right.
Always.
So
if you do a good job, Chad.
Yeah. Well,
based on your predictions,
yeah.
No pressure.
No pressure, but
this year's goal is.
That's right, yeah.
No. So yeah, it's concentrated, but it's really, and I tell people this, it's in that 25-mile stretch generates over 18% of the state's GDP. In one small sliver of Southeast Harris County, the value to our economy is really concentrated, and more so than in anywhere else in as far as a concentration of economic value. You won't find that anywhere else in the state. So
does that even account for? Sorry, no, go ahead.
No. I was about to say that. I said it's easy to think when you say who we serve, but really who we serve is the state and the nation. I mean, and so yeah,
the world,
no doubt,
right?
There's an absolute correlation between just this little pocket, but then this pocket expands all the way from coast to coast. Really, when you think about it.
Well, and what we make here really does change the entire world, because we make the products that go into everything that we touch and consume, whether it's wrappings to keep food fresh, whether it's medical equipment, whether it's automotive, whether it's clothing, whether it's your cell phone, your glasses that you wear. It's everything that makes the quality of life for people around the world and raises those people out of kind of a poverty situation into kind of the middle class. And that's what we make. We make the items that make quality of life better around the world.
Well, no doubt. And I was going to say, in just the port itself, the size, the scale of our port, items we don't make, we receive or ship out of, right? So even if we don't make them here, they're coming in here and they're going throughout the states, right?
That's crazy.
Or they're being made somewhere else in a state here or Canada and going out from our port across the globe. So not just making them and getting them out, but shipping them, moving the goods, the people to move the goods. I mean, it's kind of a trifold. I was going to ask a minute ago, you said this small sliver, not including the ship channel itself, the pilots, the guys bringing the ships in, like that kind of extends, literally into the sea, not on land, but that's something we cover as well. So there's probably an economic impact beyond that, right? That we're not even accounting for, which is tremendous.
The products we move in and out of here, just people don't realize the scale and scope of what we move in and out of here. Everything from agricultural goods, we often get a chance to kind of help facilitate solutions around the region just by who we know. We'll get a call from a company and say, hey, we've got and this is a real life example. We had a call from a member company that said, hey, we're developing this property. It's next to the rail, which is next to the port, and they want to export ag goods to these 3 or 4 countries. And it was somewhere in Europe, right? And but they needed the ability and the permit to be able to bring their trucks in and out of a road that was really only about 100 yards long. They needed about 300 foot of permit to get in and out of their facility because their facility was adjacent to the rail, right? And so they would rail goods in and they need to truck their goods from that little terminal, if you will, over to the port terminal. And they had to kind of jump through some bureaucratic hoops to get the permit to do it. And they know that these cities are part of the organization. We have great relationships with the cities. The cities understand what our role is. And so they called us and said, Chad, who do you know at this city? Can you help us make the right contact? And so we set up a couple of phone calls and, bing, bang, boom, Bob's your uncle. They got their release from the city and they're off and running. And it was things like that happen all the time. But it just goes to show all the different goods that are coming and going. It's not just petrochemicals. It's not, it's ag, it's paper, it's wood, it's steel, all kinds of things that make the world go around, coming in and out of the port all the time.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, love it.
Lots of fun stuff.
All right, so we looked back. Let's talk about your predictions for last year. You said one of the things came to fruition, so let's talk about that project specifically. It's a massive undertaking, and it was a brand new company that had 0 footprint here, correct?
Exactly. One of 3 project announcements, we call them wins or project announcements that happened last year. We had 5 total that totaled right at about $1 billion, just a little bit over $1 billion in new capital.
Just $1 billion
spread over these 5 projects. And this one was from a company called Cal. And in Texas, everybody thinks, what are we doing with cows? But it's a Japanese-owned company spelled KAO, and they make specialty chemicals and surfactants that go into a lot of products that go into products for
consumer goods, right?
Yeah. Just all kinds of good stuff that a lot of folks are familiar with. But they had no presence here. They bought and developed or are currently constructing this facility, about $300 million in phase one. This facility, which is situated on the old Sunoco refinery in Pasadena, had laid dormant for over 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And so, we call that a brownfield site, but it's a great use of that piece of property already in an industrial district. And the interesting thing about that was they have a partner company called Ethox. I was trying to get the name right. Yeah, Ethox. With their other facility in the Carolinas, and Ethox takes one of the products that they make and they make a different products. And so they contacted Ethox and said, "Hey, we're going to build this facility. Would you guys like to also build?" They sold them a portion of the acreage there, and now Ethox is also building a small facility to co-locate. And that was one of the second projects that came from a company that had no presence in Texas before. So yeah, last year ended up being a really good year as far as project work goes. Anytime you get 5 project announcements that we get to work on, and we help them in all kinds of ways, everything from a new road to permitting. In fact, we had a follow-up phone call with them just a few weeks ago here in early 2024 about some wastewater treatment permitting that they were needing to get through with Harris County. We make a phone call to our partners at the county, specifically inside of Commissioner Garcia's office, because it's in his precinct, and his staff, Mike Likes, the chief of staff, immediately connect us with the right people, make the connection with the company and say, okay, here's who you need to talk to. Here's the problem that they're looking at. Let's make sure we solve this. And oh, by the way, follow up with me in a week and let me know how it's going. So, those types of support activities are just invaluable for the companies that are trying to build a product, because every day is money, right? Every day that you're not in production is money. So the quicker we can get through that process of permitting and infrastructure and construction, the quicker they get online, the quicker they're making money, which is what they want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that story that you just told, because one thing that goes, I think, underrepresented here is that the organization is politically kind of agnostic, right? It doesn't matter your political affiliation, because everybody here locally, take national politics aside, but local politics, they're for economic growth, right? They're for workforce development. They're for putting people to work. And so regardless of what people may think, that majority of our members are one political affiliation and the commissioner may be another, or whatever in between, that goes away. It goes out the door. It's like, we're trying to get businesses here to grow, to make goods for our people and get people to work. And that is such an important point.
Probably one of the most refreshing things about local politics is when you see them come together through organizations like this. It's almost like a unifying front, which I think is, we need more of that, right?
Yeah, we're all pro Houston. We're all pro Ship Channel. We're all
pro Ship Channel. Pro jobs.
And that's why we lead with our mission, right? And our mission is to grow the economy, and everybody can get into that mission, right? I mean, we want to, when your mission includes creating jobs and quality of life for families and communities and businesses being able to prosper.
Like, who doesn't want that?
Right? It's the American dream that we are the champions of, right? So it's like you say, it's not a political organization, other than the fact that we use policy and elected officials and our governmental entities to help move that mission down the road.
Sure.
Right? So it's fun. We get to work with everybody, and man, we've got some great elected officials that help.
Absolutely.
So
yeah. I do want to share one story, just because we were talking about opportunities and things that really stand out. I actually had a gentleman reach out to me through LinkedIn that came across our show from the Carolinas, and they run a logistics company, and they're thinking about expanding out in this market. So I ended up at lunch with a guy, and he was just asking me about the market, and they have trucks that are coming in and out of here already, but they're thinking about building out a Houston branch. And so I thought that was pretty cool. The fact that
it happens all the time.
He was severely disappointed when we realized what I actually did for a living, and that I was of no value to him. But I'm just kidding. I actually,
your value is
Yeah.
you know
Oh
everybody.
yeah. No, so actually, the cool thing
That's a
was
great
I
point.
immediately got him a meeting with somebody through here, and then also another member of the organization he's meeting with. So
Excellent.
that was a
Excellent.
victory.
That's your value, buddy. You're a connector.
I know.
That's what
I
you're
get
here.
it. I got it.
That's what we do
Yeah,
here.
he started talking to me about, he's like, so tell me about what's going on behind the gates. I'm like, well, here's the deal.
I've never been back there,
Yeah.
so
but I hear. But no,
that's
just to think that our show caught the attention of a guy in Carolina, and now he's using that to petition to get these guys to come and build a branch out in this marketplace is testament to what we're trying to do.
That's a perfect example of how it works and what we're here for. I got an email early this week. Today is, we're recording late in the week, but about 3 days ago, I got an email from a lady who is the president of her company that manufacture pharmaceutical goods. She had been in conversation with Senator Carol Alvarado. Carol immediately said, and they were interested in creating a manufacturing facility here in Houston in the Port region. Carol did exactly what we would want her to do. She said, you know what, you need to call the Economic Alliance. These guys are there for that role specifically. And so we connected on email, and we're trying to connect with her either this afternoon or next week to begin conversations about all the the sites that they need, how many jobs that would create, what kind of capital it would be, where they would like to locate, just the whole process, right? So it's another good example of kind of that organic growth in this region.
So are we putting that down as a 24 prediction yet, Chad? Are we confident you can close that deal?
Let us have the first full conversation before I get out in front of that for 2024. So.
All right.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to get with Manny and try to put some type of scoreboard like that we can do. Like edit into the video. Chad Swami predictions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it happening.
Yeah, I like it.
Ooh, we can get you one of those hats.
Yeah, the Swami hat.
Swami hat.
Yeah.
Let's talk about 24, Chad. What do you got? What's some big announcements that may be coming? What you can share with the group, with the audience? Big things coming this year.
One thing that kind of moves from 23 to 24. At the very end of 23, we had the conclusion of the TxDOT Planning, Environmental, and Linkages study of 225, Highway 225. Right, it stretched actually from the 146 intersection on the east end all the way to 610 and around to the connection to Highway 45 heading south. That includes the 610 bridge. So that study has been ongoing for 3 years. It took us about 3 or 4 years in conversations with all of our stakeholders, the port, the industry, our cities, and the county, to kind of get us to the point where that study kicked off about 3 years ago. And what it is looking at is, what do we need to build capacity-wise in this region on this kind of thoroughfare or this roadway through this region that really is the most freight traveled region or thoroughfare in the entire state. It's south of the channel. It connects to 146, which connects to the two container terminals. It's just north of the Bayport Company's 75 chemical plants there, plus everything along 225. And so at the end of 23, TxDOT came forward and presented their recommendations from that study. And it included 3 or 4 really, really key, what I would call wins for the region. So first and foremost, it is recommended that they increase the capacity, they upgrade 225 and increase the capacity by creating an elevated lanes. So 2 lanes both ways, elevated in some form or fashion, either in the middle or on the side. The engineers will figure that out. But you couldn't go any wider because of the road right-of-way restrictions. So the only option to increase capacity is to elevate. So there'll be an under and an over with different ramps and accesses on and off kind of throughout that 10-mile stretch from 610 out to 146. So that's the one big thing. Now that's a high price ticket. You're talking about building almost a 10-mile bridge, right? Parts of it are currently elevated, but it's talking about building basically a 10-mile long bridge. So that's an expensive project. It'll be in the billions of dollars to do that project. So we've got some heavy lifting moving forward to get the funding for that. But when we need projects like that, I go back to that statement we made at the beginning that this 25-mile region here generates 18% of the state's GDP, right? So if we're going to not cut that off and not strangle our ability to produce that kind of economy, then we need to invest in that infrastructure, right?
No doubt.
Right.
So that's the key thing that came out of that. Secondly, and in a part of the project that they will accelerate, is they're going to need a new 610 bridge over the Houston Ship Channel. It needs to be higher to allow larger vessels in, which means as soon as you go up, you go wider for the ramps up and down, and then that moves into how does that connect into 610 and 45? Because if you drive that very often, you know that it's like boom, boom, boom. You're on 610 bridge, you're on 610, all of a sudden you're on 45. So they will replace that bridge. They've already put a price tag on that. They're going to start the engineering on that either late this year or early next year. I don't have my specific notes, but it's either 24 or in 25 when they begin that project. It's a bridge. We know what bridges cost because we're doing a really big one on Beltway 8. TxDOT put about a $2 billion price tag on that bridge, right? So significant kind of decade-long changes, if you will, kind of really structural changes to what's going to happen in this region. And then the third thing that really happened that we are very, very happy about is that TxDOT recommended engineering, which they've got the engineering done, and now completing all 8 of the direct connectors at Beltway 8 and 225 at that intersection, so that you no longer have to go through, 3 red lights to take a left turn to make a directional change in that intersection. I mean, that is the busiest. If you can't drive that intersection at 5 o'clock on a weekday, right?
Right.
And it's right in the heart of our region. So, and then finally, as a bonus, so these are hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars of projects, right? The direct connectors at Beltway 8, I think they run roughly $40 billion a piece is kind of the current estimate. So times 8, is a significant number in the hundreds of millions. But they're doing really big projects, right? And that one's going to get done. That one begins later this year, right?
That's crazy.
So fantastic news on that one. That one is engineered. They have the funding already for the first 5. We've still got to get some funding for the last 3, but I think we know where that money's coming from now. I guess the icing on the cake or the little tip for the region at the end of the study, they said, oh, by the way, we'll spend $11 million and we're going to repave Highway 225 in the interim between now and when they do the redevelopment. So next year they're going to do an asphalt overlay over 225. So all those chips that you get in your windows will be fixed for a while, right? Yeah. So that's a nice little bonus. Cool. That was the tip for the dealer, right? So if you will. So that all happened at the very end of 23. So now let's look at 24. So that's a win. We still have some work to do in finding the rest of that money. I think the first thing that you'll see is the direct connectors. It'll probably go direct connectors, 610 bridge, and then sometime within the next decade probably we'll be able to begin the construction on the elevated 225. But that's multiple $billion in funding away, right? So we have to go to work on that, and that means working with our state legislators, working with TxDOT, working with our federal elected officials to capture the money and make the argument that this is necessary for this region.
Yeah.
So lots of work to do there. So that's high on our priority list. In fact, we're gonna highlight in one of our late summer events, Eliza Paul and TxDOT, and talking about a lot of these projects. So really kind of give an update.
Is TxDOT the official people who are the ones who are, I guess, championing to get the funding, or are they the ones that are that like I would imagine to go spend billions of dollars, there's got to be a lot of data to support the need and what it means to the economy.
Yeah.
Is that a unified front, or is that who's really driving the?
Well, in Texas, in the road infrastructure game, it is the squeaky wheel that gets the grease, right?
Gotcha.
And so it's groups like us, it's groups like HJC and GHB and state associations and regional associations that have to do the advocacy to be able to pull those monies down. It's our elected officials from this region,
Gotcha.
you know, standing on the table saying this is what we have to have in this region because it's important to the state. So TxDOT is the entity, you know, they'll do the study and they'll eventually, you know, let the contracts and build the roads. They're going to do what the state tells them to do, basically. Gotcha. They're not going to go advocate for it. They've done their work on this Pell study and said, yeah, it's needed, and here's what we recommend to meet the needs. And then now it's back on us.
And everybody's got to
go get the money.
Yeah, they're the owner entity, but they ultimately the state government, they're publicly funded.
Right. So that's the great example of your description of policy, right? When we say we're involved, we're not really in policy as opposed to politics, because policy is what gets this stuff done.
Yeah,
right?
No doubt.
So, we love it.
Yeah, so that's a big priority for us in 24, and it will be for several years, right? So that's a constant for us and one of our top priorities. As far as project work goes, Chad Carson, our VP of Economic Development, sat down and did a fine-tooth comb over our current project pipeline. So we kind of made sure that everything in there was accurate and up to date. And so going into this year, the new numbers are we've got 21 projects that we're currently working on in some form or fashion that we're trying to land in this region. You know, some of those will fall off. Some of the investors, you know, will say, hey, it's not time, or we don't want to do it there. But we've got 21 in the project pipeline right now. It totals about $6.5 billion, about $6.6 billion in potential capital investment, somewhere north of 3,000 jobs potentially with all of that.
Love it.
Wow.
From that, this year, I will couch it like this. We're going to have some wins this year. I'm not going to make a prediction on a specific company right now. We've got some that I know that are going to happen, and we're trying to get in a position where we can help those happen, working with the companies themselves and the cities that they're trying to build in. So we've got some exciting things that are going to happen. I'll say this one, north of the ship channel. So that's all I'm going to say on that.
Start throwing out a scoreboard.
Okay.
No, 21 projects, $6.5 billion. That's the number. Yeah, that's where judging. That's your batting average now.
All right.
What's interesting though, and this is a dynamic that I think we'll see play out this year. I'd be surprised if we don't get at least one win out of this. So that 21 projects, $6 billion, are kind of conventional projects that we work with, dominated by the petrochemical industry. Secondary is going to be something in the supply chain logistics. The other thing that has happened over the last 12 months now is this is a list of 10 different projects that are contingent. So FID, you know, final investment decision contingent upon government grants. Okay, so I'm looking at 10 projects. The first 8 of these projects have DOE grants associated with them. And normally they're anywhere from $100 million, $500,000, up to $1 billion, right? And they're all in energy transfer, carbon capture, some sort of hydrogen project, those types of things. Then we've got a Health and Human Services grant for $500 million that I'm really hopeful that one works out. We've met with the owners of the company. They come from Kentucky. It's a family-owned business. They want to manufacture here. The reason they want to manufacture here is because their feedstock comes from one of our members, LyondellBasell.
We talked about them last year,
right,
on this show last year. I remember the Kentucky company.
Yep, exactly. And that we talked with that owner just earlier this month, right? And they feel that in this year, there's a good chance probably in the first half of this year that those announcements will be made.
Sweet.
I feel confident that this company will be one of those awarded that grant. So fingers crossed on that one. That would be a neat deal. And then there's some from the Department of Commerce as well in the CHIPS Act. So trying to get some of that technology back over here. So I hate to hold up a sheet of paper, but that's 10 projects and $2 billion in potential projects that we're not counting in our regular work, because it's a one-off from us. We've never seen federal government come in with that kind of grant opportunities, and our petrochemical industry lean into that in such a way. So you're kind of seeing the the early days of the energy transition with a lot of this federal money. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays. And in an election year, and this is me being cynical, I think some of these are going to be awarded in an election year because that's how the federal government works. You know, they're like, hey, we want to do some really good things right before the election, and so I think some of these are going to be awarded and announced this year.
Funny, you just answered the question I was about to ask, which before we got done was what does it look like in an election year? So well, there's more favoritism and leaning towards stuff actually getting done. Is what you're saying. So
from the government side, yes. Yeah. So I think some of that money is going to come out. Okay, the other side of that coin is. And this is direct quotes from a lot of the industry experts, and we're going to hear this again in our economic forecast here in about 6 weeks. In the petrochemical industry, facing narrower margins now that we are in a slowdown, whether it's called a recession or not, we anticipate kind of a pullback on capital and private money capital investment on major projects over the next 12 to 18 months. Okay. It is what it is. It's cyclical. Most of the companies are looking to just kind of keep the money in their pocket and ride through this for the next 12, 18 months. But with an eye on where we're going to be 2 years from now. Right. And so so you've got that kind of economic pullback, with interest rates and money accessibility and margins on products that are tightening, and then you compound that with it's an election year, and every 4 years, the things that slow down investment are uncertainty. And so we're looking at 10, 12 months of uncertainty until we know what's fixing to happen. And so you'll see people hold on to their large capital investments until the outcome is there, and then they feel that they can say, okay, here's the direction we can go. We feel good about this, or no, we need to hold back on this. So every 4 years, we see it in our cycle of capital investment that in an election year, money tightens up and it just slows down a little bit. And then once the election passes, then people have some certainty in which direction they're going to go, who they're going to deal with at the DC level, and then they can move forward.
Understood.
Right. So not it is what it is. It's the economy that we deal with. It's not the roller coaster that the upstream oil and gas rides with oil prices. But it's a smaller sure. dip and rise as we continue to grow this economy here. So that's the prediction for 2024.
And specific to what you were mentioning, there is a fantastic economic update from Patrick Jankowski in 6 weeks.
Yep. And
so stay tuned.
And combined with that, this year for the first time, we're bringing in the experts and economists from the Industrial Information Resources to do. So Patrick will do his macro look at the greater Houston area. And then following that, in the same meeting, we'll have some really deep dive micro look into the petrochemical manufacturing side of the business along the Gulf Coast here. So it's kind of a, hey, what's greater Houston at the macro? What are jobs? What are housing starts? Those types of things. And then we're going to dive into our specific industry, which is the kind of the petrochemical manufacturing side of the business. So
it gave me horrific flashbacks from college with macro and microeconomics. Like, oh God, I love it now, but in college I was like, oh, I don't know the difference. So
see, you say that those two classes are literally the reason that I ended up getting an economics degree, because I enjoyed them.
Yeah. Well, and now I do. It's just so interesting. Like I want to be there and I want to hear about it. It's just it's so interesting how college changed you. But anyway, I was like, oh no. Bad flashbacks, but
so as we wrap up, anything else that you want to?
The other thing that I would say in 2024, look, we have just been really fortunate early in this year to confirm some fantastic speakers for all of our events, including our next procurement forum, which happens in May. We've got a full lineup with some great speakers and companies. Our women's leadership lunches are going to be phenomenal this year. We have 3 of those each year. They sell out every time. I mean, between 450 and 500 attendees to these. And our first one of the year happens April 24th. And the guest speaker is Hannah McNair, the vice president of the Houston Texans Foundation, right? And if you know anything about football and the Texans, Hannah's kind of running the show, if you will. And she's phenomenal. And then she's going to be in a fireside chat, kind of moderated by Janice Burke, no relation.
Podcast guest, Janice Burke.
Yes, we've got her on the list. But Janice
Awesome.
is executive director of the Harris County Houston Sports Authority. And she's good friends with Hannah, and she's gonna help moderate a little fireside chat. It's the day before the draft too, so it should be interesting.
That'd be really cool.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
Janice
lots of great things gonna happen this year. It's gonna be a fantastic year.
Fantastic.
Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Well, hey, as always, we look forward to the annual recap and review for the upcoming year, and so excited
Chad
about
chat.
that. Chat, yeah, chat. And then again, no pressure, but we'll be testing you out at the end of next season.
Yeah,
For sure.
As to how you.
I think we'll
come
see a
out.
couple of nice wins.
So I'm looking forward to it, and we look forward to it. And thank you for all that you do for the organization, for the community. You've built a phenomenal team, and there's no reason why you're regularly recognized one of the top CEOs here in Houston because of the great work that you do. So we all
Amen.
appreciate you. Chad.
Appreciate the kind words and appreciate you two guys doing this for us. Y'all are pros and do a fantastic job at this. So this is invaluable for us. So we
Fantastic.
appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And to our audience, we always appreciate you guys for tuning in. Stay tuned next week. You can subscribe to us at HoustonPortRegion.com and stay connected to us. And anytime you want to get plugged in, reach out to myself or Zeke on LinkedIn, and we'll stay connected. So we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to go to the Economic Alliance Houston Port Region website and subscribe to our channels. And let's pay it forward by sharing the good news of what's happening in our region by passing this episode to somebody you know.